This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast with today's guest, Erica Castner.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Now, you probably noticed there's a little bit of background noise behind me. I know, don't worry. The whole episode does not have this background noise, just my intro, because I'm currently sitting in Sydney Airport waiting to fly to LA, where I'll be doing some speaking and also having a family holiday. But here's the thing, sometimes life doesn't go as planned, and my lovely next door neighbour drove us to the airport. He drove myself and Ed and Lana to the airport. There's only one problem. The backpack with the passports and my husband's wallet in it is sitting at my next door neighbour's front door. And we live about an hour away from the airport, and traffic has been terrible. So as I sit here, one of our friends has just driven around to the next door neighbour's house, picked up the backpack, and he is on his way to the airport. There's only one problem, apart from the backpack, is that our plane leaves in an hour. So whilst I can't update you as to what's happening with the passports, they're in transit. We may or may not make this flight. I can say that having friends makes a world of difference. Now, we all need friends. We need the kind of friends who will literally drop everything and drive your passport to the airport. But we also need friends in business. So today's guest, Erica Castner, is going to talk to you about how you can create friendships in business, but also how you can streamline your systems as well. Today's episode is brought to you by my free masterclass, How to Create High Converting E-commerce Facebook Ads. If you want to create ads that will be seen by the right people and that will convert into sales, then this training is for you. Head on over to SelenaKnight.com/masterclass and grab your free spot. Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. We could all do with more customers, and we could always do with friends in business. And I use the word friends with some air quotes around them, because growing your retail business is not about doing this on your own. So I have brought Erica on to talk about how you can grow your business and improve your customer experience just by putting yourself out there and creating some partnerships and maybe even some streamlining some systems along the way. Welcome to the show, Erica.
Hi, Sal. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited about our chat today.
I'm so glad that you are here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. My introduction into the online space wasn't always on the online space. My background actually stems back, I can't believe I'm saying this, but over 20 years ago, I started my career in the corporate retail space. And I always joke about this. I tell people, back in the day, my destiny was working behind the Clinique cosmetic counter. And today, that's the furthest thing that I'm doing. Although I spent the first 11 years of my career climbing the corporate ladder, working in retail giants like Victoria's Secret, Lancome Cosmetics. I did mention Clinique. And I was really helping build know, like, and trust factor on the ground. There was these multi-million-dollar budgets, marketing campaigns that were bringing customers into the door. And my job was really to help train the associates inside of the stores, help them create that client experience. And then in 2005, shifted gears, moved from my Midwestern town in Illinois to Southwest Florida, which is where I reside today, and really shifted gears, went from, working in retail space, and then all of a sudden found myself working in the professional service realm. And we really just got intrigued by how different that space is with the retail space, right? It's just a way different. In retail, you're selling like this tangible thing where people can touch and experience it right there in the store. And all of a sudden I found myself in this like, oh, what am I doing now? I'm now talking about a professional service, which is very, intangible. And you have to almost sell the experience as opposed to selling a widget or a product. So today, hopefully this conversation is really going to help our listeners really identify with some best practices to really cater to that service element, but also to help bring foot traffic into the store. Because I know a lot of your listeners are probably thinking about how do we bring more peeps into our e-commerce space or into our brick and mortar space. So I'm excited. We'll lots of stuff to talk about today.
You were talking about professional services and how you kind of have to bring the experience to life, and essentially that equals exactly what an e-commerce store is. You have a product, and while someone can, maybe see it's a pink t-shirt, they don't know how it fits. They don't know what the fabric feels like. They don't know if the cut is going to look good on them. So what are the biggest differences that you saw between like the online aspect and the actual bricks and mortar?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it all boils down to, communication. So, if we're in the online space and you're trying the e-commerce space and you're really trying to create that, it's not so much about the transaction. It's really about engaging with your clientele, making them feel something, like really getting to the core of, and again, you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm selling this pink t-shirt, or I'm selling this scarf, or I'm selling this, this widget. But it's really about at the core of what you're trying to do to drive business is all about building that rapport, building that relationship, telling that story. So, inside of a brick and mortar, you can create that experience through, because people can see you, they see you in person, they can touch and feel the product, but you still have to be a really wonderful communicator. You still have to pour on the charm and, the customer service element in it. So I think at the end of the day, regardless of where you're driving sales, it's all about at the core, it's all about the communication.
Okay. So the people who are listening are going, that's fine, Erica. How the freaking heck do I do that? Like you said, it is a lot easier in store, because in store you can create that environment, and you can, if you've got really great sales assistants, you can just engage with the person, you can get feedback. And I know a lot of people have difficulty with this online. I personally think that you can absolutely do this online, especially when you've got a lot of brand cohesiveness. But I would love to hear, and I'm sure everybody listening would love to hear, what do you suggest for building that connection, for building that experience, especially if you are online? And then I guess my next follow-on question to that will be, and how does that translate to offline?
Yeah. So, is it okay if I use a brand example?
Go for it. We love examples.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So, the one that I really see doing a phenomenal job right now is BarkBox. Are you familiar with that company?
No, but I have heard
about
them.
My
Are
goodness.
they a dog subscription?
Yes, it's a dog subscription company, and it's called BarkBox. I love, 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 love their marketing, everything that they do. So again, they're catering to the pet lover. I've got a pet. It's pretty simple concept, treats and toys come to your door for your dog, right? But the moment that box gets to my doorstep, it's like when I open it, it is literally a story that they're telling inside of that box. So I think number one, they're catering to dog fanatics, right? They understand their market so much. They understand that, I don't have physical children. I have stepchildren, but it's a way different thing. This is my baby. And so they're catering to that person. So I think number one, regardless of where you're at in the retail space, or, whether you're doing that in a brick and mortar space or whether you're doing that online, is know your customer. Get feedback from your customer in real time. Try things on. And social, we're going to go with the online bit for a moment. There's a lot of things that you can do to tell that story through social media. A lot of it's going to require us and your listeners to really think about, okay, it's not necessarily doing things static. It's not like just putting up a cute picture and typing text. It might be showing a video, a 30-second or a 15-second video on what your product is doing, and really engaging or talking, using your customers, for instance, to really talk and play up what you're all about. And BarkBox, so the listeners that are tuning into the show today, they've got a really brilliant, they tell that story online. It shows up on my doorstep. It shows up in the way that they, even the packaging looks like they're telling the story. So that's one example of doing that. And I think in the brick and mortar space, one of the things that I found to be really successful, especially since I Like I represented, for instance, I'll just talk about my Lancome cosmetic experience because that was the last retail experience that I had prior to me launching my company. Um, what we did that was different than any other Lancome counter out there was we partnered with organizations like Women in Business. I mean, hello, we're selling lipsticks and skincare, so we partnered with our local initiatives that were catering to women in business, and I wanted to attract professional women who valued a more elite skincare line. So I did whatever I could to partner with chambers of commerce, local civic organizations, to really add value to what they were doing, sharing tips, sharing resources, inviting them into my store, going to them. Like I would literally go to people's businesses with my dog and pony show, with my with my products, and I would do what we would call like an outsourcing event. So I would bring up like a few things and we would do demos in people's offices and get sales right on the spot, which I would take back to the store and ring up for the day. That was stuff that wouldn't have happened if I didn't think outside of the box and go to my clients and really ask them what it is about my product, my service. If we're going to talk about service, for instance, what is it about my product or service that really speaks to them, and how can I deliver that?
That is gold. I just wrote down like 5 things to ask you.
There was a lot in there, so I'm so sorry I went under the whole tangent. But it's truly about diving into that and really creating that experience. So those are a couple of tips that I could share with you, and we can, I'm sure, continue the conversation.
Okay, so my first one is, let's go back to BarkerBox, and I have to say, are you familiar with the brand Chubbies?
I've heard of them, but I'm not really familiar with them.
Guys, you have to go and check out their website. They do kind of retro short shorts for men, but their whole brand is about chubbies are for the weekend. So they're all about the weekend. So they send their newsletter out on Friday, and they have, great tips about what's going on and, things you could do this weekend and grilling guides and all this kind of stuff. They do that branding experience. Like you said, they know what's different about them. They know that not everybody looks good in pastel short shorts. Like really, that is a niche
come
product.
on, are you serious? No, I'm kidding.
And they have just embraced it, and as a result, I always love using them as an example. So guys, check those out, even if it's just for the branding experience, and sign up to their newsletter, because I imagine it's something like the BarkerBox as well, where they've just embodied what their customer wants. So you were saying with the BarkerBox, this is your baby, and this is not about money, guys. This is where you have to appreciate that. One of my clients actually said to me the other day, I would never make my customers pay for something that I wouldn't pay for. And it was like slap across the back of the head. You are not your customer. You have no right to say how much someone else is prepared to pay for something.
Exactly.
And it's that experience. People want that experience. You get excited about that box turning up every month, and that means you're going to play with the dog, and the joy that comes with buying the subscription. It's kind of not even about the thing, right? It's about the experience that it invokes before it comes and it provokes after it's arrived.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll have to definitely check out Chubbies because that sounds intriguing now. Maybe I'll have to get some shorts for my husband. I'm just kidding.
I think they do ladies' shorts.
I'm sure he would love that.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, we can get matching ones perhaps.
And you could get they're like, I always look at them and they're like, if you have a white polo shirt, it looks like you're playing 70s tennis, those kind of shorts. Anyway,
awesome.
The other thing I was going to say there about, you talked about how you can really bring that story to life on social media. And you said something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you said something about sharing the customer. And it just made me think, for the people who are listening who are struggling to think about what to post on social media, you don't have to post on social media. You can get your customers to be doing this for you. And you said that the BarkerBox people are, tagging them on social media, and they're showing what they got and how their dogs are playing with it and things like that. So thinking outside the box, what I'm trying to take away from this is exactly what you just said at the end, is it's time to think outside the box and stop thinking that you have to do all the work.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, especially if you're stuck inside your storefront, like you have more flexibility if you have an online store, e-commerce brand. But if you're inside of your brick and mortar, I remember what it was like being the only one, or, maybe, that there was 2 or 3 people, depending on what store I was working in. Victoria's Secret employed a lot of people, but, I literally had to stay within the store. And so sometimes it can be really challenging to think outside of the box when you're stuck inside of the store. One of the things that I used to do for another retailer that I worked for, we literally would host weekend events. Every weekend was a different themed event. And I would think, and this is way before social media, like social media did not even exist at the time that I worked for this retailer. So everything was, our existing client base. And because we made it event focused and we always asked our repeat customers, hey, we're going to be doing this thing coming up and we'd love to hear your feedback. What would you like to see? What would be exciting for you to bring your girlfriends? Because, it was a women's clothing store. What would you like to see? And generally they wanted, sometimes they wanted pampering sessions. So we would literally bring in, for instance, we would bring in the makeup counters, in the department store down the street from the mall that I was working at the time. We would bring in, like if it were designer purses, we didn't carry handbags. So that was a good partnership. Hey, we sell clothes, you sell these really cool handbags, and they're unique and special to, this area. Why don't we bring you in and you can do a trunk show kind of a thing? So if you can't leave the store, that's another way to kind of think about, okay, what are my clients into? Asking for that feedback while you're getting clients coming into the store. Picking up the phone, that's another thing. I mean, so often we're so afraid to even pick up the phone and talk to our clients. I mean, how phenomenal would it be if you already have a guest registry in your store to literally call up your clients and say, hey, we have this special, unique event going on this weekend. Thought of you, would love to see you and a girlfriend or you and your kids, make it unique and special to them, if you know your customer. But try to really get feedback from your clients and then go create those experiences inside the store.
That is so true. One of my retailers in my mastermind, she just did that recently. She has a homeware store, and in the middle of the store, she has this great big long table, and she said, I bought this table, to sell. It's too big. Nobody. So she brought a local artist in on a Saturday to do a watercolor workshop. And not only did they obviously use that bit of space, but there's something about when things are going on, even if there's nobody around, I don't know, the energy just draws people in. And the minute that something is going on, she said, all these people turned up. Obviously, she got sales from the people who turned up for the workshop, but she was promoting the artist, and it actually got picked up by the paper as well, the local paper. Now, I'm not for print media, but if somebody's going to give it to you, then I'm over it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because again, sometimes you've got to, a lot of times you have to pay for that stuff, right? But if there's a way that your partner, if we're talking about strategic partners, if they're saying, oh, look, I get to be in XYZ store this weekend, come out and see me, absolutely jump all over that. And then, find other ways that you can piggyback on that media, right? So you could probably, I've done this before in the past, more in the service-based world, but this tip will apply to anybody that's listening. You can take a picture of that print media and say, hey, guess what? We were featured in XYZ publication, because for instance, I write all the time for one of my local business journals. And so they don't actually have an online, they're very strictly local based, but my international and my national clients know that I'm a guest columnist for this publication, because every time I'm featured in there, I take a picture of it, I put it up on social media, and I give them kind of the 411 on where they could get more information about the article or whatever. But yeah, it's a cool way for you to leverage things on and offline for sure.
And not only that, it's rewarding the customer. Like this, I think this event, it was free. I'm not 100% sure, but even if it was like, if it was paid, it was only a token amount. But at the end of the day, her customers were so excited about this opportunity that, one, they didn't even know existed, but two, it was, it's watercolor. These are homeware, people who are buying homewares, and it was just this opportunity to get their creativity. And you were saying about the trunk shows. Yes, we used to do that in our store. We would get other brands in that we didn't stock. So we had baby products, so we didn't stock baby furniture. So we would bring somebody in with like car seats or furniture or even more grown-up kids' clothes. And we would have these little sort of fashion parades and little events. Those things go gangbusters. But what I think people forget is if you're an online business, you can team up with someone who has another business, a physical space, a physical product, and you could be doing this in reverse. You could be the person we're talking about. You could be doing the trunk show at a local hair salon or at a local real estate agent if you've got products that they could use for their clients. So you said earlier on, think about why you're different and kind of leverage that, and thinking outside the box. You're giving me loads of ideas on how people could be doing this. So I guess one of my other questions then is, do you have any suggestions for how, if you have an online business, how you can take that offline?
Oh, yeah. How much time do we have, my friend? Yeah, I mean, that was, reverse engineering, because again, my background started in the offline space. And then even when I moved into the service-based space, this was, 2005, 2006, social media was just a baby, right? I mean, there was really not it was still pretty foreign to a lot of people. So a lot of these techniques, I guess I should say, not tactics, that's probably a more appropriate word. But yeah, so if you're an online provider, so if you've got an e-commerce store, I think a lot of missed opportunity, a lot of dollars are left on the table, the metaphoric table, if you will, because people think, okay, I'm a national brand or I'm an international brand, and they won't do anything in the local market. So, local people, or especially if you're an established brand, or if you've got this presence that, you're national or you're international, local people want to create partnerships with you. There's some sort of mystery and intrigue about what you do. So I always suggest to people that are on the other side of it, so if they have an online, e-commerce space or an online service-based business, and they're trying to reach out to the local market, one of the things that they could do is, partner with organizations that are already speaking to their target market. So, back in the day, like I had reached out to women in business organizations because that fit the line of product that I was doing. If you are selling baby things, or children's clothes, you could partner with pediatricians or, children's dentists, or, a child photographer. There's a lot of things that, family photographers, even for that case. So there's a lot of ways that you can partner with local peeps in your own backyard. It just requires you to make the ask, because I think a lot of people, I know in my experience, it always seemed rather intimidating to reach out to somebody that seemed established online, because it was like this, they have this, you automatically think that because they're online, they have a bigger presence than they probably do. So if you just reach out and say, hey, we're looking to do X, Y, Z, and, I'm speaking kind of general, we could get into specifics, but, think about your industry, think about the people that are already talking to your client, and reach out and say, you know what, I'm thinking about this idea, and I'd love to see how we could connect and partner and create a win-win opportunity for both of us to grow. But, definitely dip into your local roots. It'll really surprise you how much you can accomplish. And then, of course, you can get your local people to talk about it on their social media platforms. So it's like this circle, but it's a beneficial circle. It's not like you're spinning. It's not like you're spinning your wheels. It's really moving things into motion.
I have two comments about that. The first one is, when we opened our store, we actually had a family photographer approach us and say, hey, can I give you a bunch of $50 vouchers, and you can give them, you can choose how you give them out. Either gift with purchase, but it ended up being so successful. She was literally giving us hundreds of these cards, and we would just give them, if you purchased over $100, you got one of these $50 gift cards with her. And we became one of her best sources of lead generation, because it was the perfect partnership. It cost nothing for us. And for her, $50, or I think it alternated between sort of $50 and then a free photo session. I think we tested a few different things, and the free sitting was the one that got everybody in. But for her, giving up that 1 hour of time, that a family is going to buy photos. No one goes and does a portrait sitting if they don't want the photos. So she knew that she was going to make money. And I think we worked out at one point, the average package that people purchased was something like $1,500. So for her just getting those cards printed and aligning with us, one, our customers thought they got a fantastic gift, especially when we moved into the portrait session, which was worth, valued at $500. They were like, wow. We would get people saying, I want the gift card, and I only have $89, so let me just grab something else.
Oh yeah, that's the best, right? Especially when you have that, in the service-based world, it's almost like that limiter, it's almost like that, if you buy it today, you're going to get this, but you only can do it in this day. Yeah, it's the opposite of that, because they think, oh, I have to spend at least $150 or $100 or whatever. So I got to get more because I'm so close. So that works out really great and that could translate in the e-commerce space too. I mean, I've seen that work, that sometimes works on more of an affiliate, that of course I try to stay away from affiliates. It's not really it's not my sweet spot to talk about, but I've seen that work in the online space too, where, hey, you buy this and you spend X, you get this, this thing, or you get, like something else that's not from our company, it's from another provider. So that works all across the board.
You just said that, and that reminded me of a parcel, and I can't for the life of me think of what it was, but it came the other day, and inside was like a $50 voucher for HelloFresh, which is one of those meal delivery services, and then, a free something with something. I just remember the HelloFresh thing because I swear I just attract those people. It's like, do you realize I can cook? I'm okay, I can cook.
But it's an interesting marketing gimmick, right? Because what does that cost them? Like if they redeem it, great. They just got, a new sale. They got a new customer. That's more of a subscription thing. I mean, although, you can generate when you get that subscription, but that marketing ploy cost, the little bit on the piece of paper. So if it never gets turned in, like they're not out anything.
No,
so it's brilliant.
And the business who put it into the parcel, they, I don't know if they may have had some sort of affiliate relationship. They may have just agreed to put it in there because of the customer experience. You get your parcel and then, hey, we're giving you $150 worth of vouchers for other businesses, 3 lots of 50 to go somewhere else. So it's one of those things that you may think putting somebody else's flyers in your package is a bit weird. But in actual fact, how are your customers going to react? This is where I think we get a little bit caught up in, but I need to protect my brand. There's a local skincare business here that whenever you purchase from them, there's always sample sachets from different brands in there. And one of my clients actually sold into that company. Her products are stocked by that company. And one of the deals was she had to supply X number of sample sachets if she wanted to be included. And who's going to say no to that?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Who's going to say no to free advertising?
Exactly. And, you said something earlier, Sal, and I want to bring it up because I think it's an important part. Talking, I guess, going back to, online businesses or even brick and mortar businesses and how they can expand and how can they get out into other audiences. I know a photographer in my local market that's done a beautiful job at partnering with all the elite black tie events. So all of the charity events in town, they, most of them have a, high ticket black tie event, some sort of gala with some sort of silent auction or live auction, thing to raise money for XYZ charity. And what she does is, and I've seen retailers do this too when they're smart about it. Instead of donating product, so instead of donating that purse, and then never seeing that client potentially come back into your store, donate a gift certificate. Make it a high value, make it a $250, make it sexy. But what are you out? Like that person's probably going to pay for that gift certificate. Those proceeds go to the charity. Yes, you're giving your quote unquote air quote giving away a $250 gift certificate, but that clientele, it's more that elite client. So you're going to get them into the store. You're going to build that relationship with them. Who knows who they know. So it's another really cool way for you to get that marketing out there without having to give away product. You can create a gift certificate, create paper, create a lot of value, and then build an experience around it once they come in to redeem it.
The getting out there is really something I think a lot of people forget, myself included. I've actually given myself a little bit of a goal to go to 8 events in the next 2 months. Now, those events I'm using a very broad category of events here. Like it could be anything from a meetup to going and seeing one of my retailers in their stores, anything. I just need to get out 8 times in the next 2 months to actually get this is an e-commerce thing. And I guess it's probably the same thing if you're in retail and you're sat behind, whether you're sat behind a computer or sat behind a counter, it doesn't really matter. But sometimes we forget we just have to go out and meet new people. And that, you could do it at your local chamber of commerce. You could do it at a meetup. It could just be a hobby thing. But we get so entrenched with sitting behind the desk or the counter that we forget that there's a world out there. And I'll just give you a quick example of what happened to me when I did this last week. I went to an online retailer conference and I was just sitting at the charging station, flicking through my phone while I was waiting for it to charge. got chatting to the guy next to me who happened to also be a podcaster, turned out to be quite a famous podcaster. And then he invited me to co-host 2 shows with him. So I was like, sure, fantastic. So an opportunity just from chatting to the person next to you. And so Pavan, if you happen to be thinking about this, and Fashion is Your Business podcast, thank you so much for that opportunity. We'll be airing that one soon, those 2. But in the process, I also then got to meet the general manager of 2 very, very big organizations, and the marketing manager for Shoes of Prey and the general manager for the Cotton On Group. So just this one little conversation put me into a whole sphere of different people that whether they work with me or not, that's sort of not the point. The fact is, you just kind of made people aware that you were out there and who you are and what it is you do. And I think that in itself gives you a lot of confidence. It reminds you that you're actually doing this thing and it's worthwhile, and this is your business that you've built.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're absolutely spot on. When you strike up a conversation with one person, you don't know who they know. I mean, and I always attribute it to this, when you're out there and when you're, positioning your brand in front of your ideal client, if one thing, the listeners could take away from the show today is this, if you start treating everybody as if they're influencers, as if they're your Pied Piper, and, you obviously want to, pour on the client experience, but not everybody, even walking into your store is not necessarily going to convert into a sale right away, right? But if you can treat everybody that you encounter as if they're going to be your next influencer or your next Pied Piper to really help you talk about your brand from that experiential standpoint, you'll win a lot of raving fans just by positioning yourself in front of those opportunities. So, extending yourself at your local chamber of commerce thing, or going to national trade show opportunities, regardless of where you're at in the scale. Building relationships with people, that's what drives sales. At the end of the day, that's what drives sales. Even in the online space, if you've got an e-commerce store, you're getting more, air quotes, foot traffic your way because somebody's probably said, "Oh my gosh, you got to go." I tell people about BarkBox all the time, and I don't even get anything for it. I just love their brand so much, and I talk about it with anybody that has a dog. And so, if you start treating people as if they could be your windpipe, that referral source for you, you're gonna leverage your time and your energy so much, and people will obviously rave about you and your experience and what you stand for.
Now, I'm sure we could continue this conversation, but I think that is the perfect point at which we should leave everybody to ponder how they are going to communicate better with their customers, communicate better with the people who can help them find their customers, and just really be confident in the business that they've grown. And I know that you have a little cheat sheet, a little guide that you're going to be giving away to our guests, the 8 ways to stay top of mind with decision makers and referral partners. So where can we find that, Erica?
Yeah, so if they just hop on over to thequeenofresults.com, they'll see it as clear as day. But if they want to actually get a direct link to it, thequeenofresults.com/free-guide, that's the place to go find that. And when you want people to ponder what to say next, how to engage, there's some really phenomenal tips on how to do just that. So if they need some extra nuggets to push them along to get them thinking in a more outside of the box way, there'll be some good tips on that guide.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's been a great conversation. I think just really spurring on how people can get themselves out there and bring in that foot traffic, and also just create a little bit of a buzz about their own retail brand. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
You're welcome, Sal. Thank you so much for having me on. You rock, my friend.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.